Have you ever wanted to study abroad but knew that you couldn't? This is the reality for millions of dreamers living in the U.S. This is the story of a Dreamer Study Abroad program in the making. Inspired by my own study abroad experiences as a student of color and in reaction to the lack of opportunities for other students like myself, I set out to find ways for these students to participate in study abroad. I remember when I began my first semester at MIS, and while taking the Principles and Practices course, I began to research heritage-seeking study abroad and study abroad for first-generation college students. At the time, there was very little information out there. It was then when I approached the California-Mexico Study Center at my alma mater, Cal State University, Long Beach, and had initial conversations with the director. We talked about the many barriers for students of color to access study abroad programs, identifying cost and legal status as being the primary obstacles. We also talked about the possibilities for dreamers to study abroad now that they have DACA status. As a DACA student, these students are now eligible for applying for advanced parole. While the name seems very criminalizing, it is a policy that allows for a special visa that is given to DACA students for one of three reasons: educational purposes, humanitarian purposes, or professional or work purposes. Before I get too ahead of myself, let me explain the basic components of this program, and then I will dig into the process, which has been 2 years in the making. What does a Dreamer Study Abroad program look like? It is a 3-week program in Mexico with 35 student participants and 5 faculty or staff members that collectively represent 18 university and college campuses. The purpose of this program is for students to come to Mexico to reconnect with family, culture, and history that will encourage them to continue exploring their identity. For many, the question is, will I feel more at home in the U.S. or in Mexico? And ultimately, the students selected for this program have a project at hand, which is to learn the model of this process of study abroad program so that they can replicate it back on their campuses. Let's hear from dreamers themselves about why heritage-seeking study abroad matters.
Professor Armando Vazquez, he came and he was talking about that last year he took 2 undocumented students to Mexico. I was like, what? Like Mexico, like to go back? I was like, that's something that would interest me. I was like, oh, but who knows? I've never gone out somewhere and traveled before because it's always that fear of deportation.
Hey, I called it. Okay, I like this, I like this.
Well, now at this point in time, I've sort of officially crossed the line of where half of my life has been spent in Mexico, half of my life has been spent in the U.S. Now at this moment in time, now that I'm returning back to Mexico, will I miss the U.S.? Will I miss the people that I've met? Will I miss the experiences that I've met? And would I wish to come back? Or would I feel right at home? Even though I'm not home, it's not my hometown, but it's still Mexico, it's still my home country. It's kind of like a little tipping point of I want to know myself, I want to experience and see, because honestly, like you said, ni de aquí ni de allá, I don't know where I fall into this border.
My identity was always just being Mexican, but now coming back, I started thinking, hey, I have 2 identities. Being in Mexico was a life-changing experience, made me grow as a person. I completed that chapter in my life.
The process of creating a Dreamer Study Abroad program began 2 years ago, with conversations with many stakeholders within the network of Mexican entrepreneurs and diplomats within the U.S. The more conversations we had, the more collaborators came on board, such as the Mexican Consulate of Los Angeles, the U.S.-Mexico Foundation, and Juntos Podemos. Also, the Citlalic Institute, Hermandad Mexicana, and the CSU International Education Office. Throughout this collaboration, Funding was secured so that we could provide full scholarships for the pilot group of students that traveled last March. And now this December, students will pay $1,500, which is roughly 1/3 of the cost. In order to reach applicants statewide, we offered this program to dreamers from any college or university within California. We received over 150 applications online, tapped into the Dreamer social media network, and interviewed the top 40 students to ensure their commitment to Dreamer study abroad programs. Selected students then filed for advanced parole 3 months prior to the departure, and the Silalic Institute incorporated Dreamer-focused staff training into their preparation plans. There were lessons learned from the pilot process last March, and many modifications were made in preparation for the upcoming group this December. For example, students now pay 1/3 of the cost. This reinforces their commitment to the program. Skype interviews were incorporated into the selection process, giving us a better understanding for each participant. The applicant pool was widened to statewide to achieve the goal of replicating this program. Students are required to develop a project that replicates a study abroad component for Dreamers on their campus. Faculty and staff that are interested in creating a Dreamer Study Abroad program on their campuses were also encouraged to attend. Local staff in Mexico also received training focused on intercultural competency and the background of Dreamers. The length of the program was also extended so that students have more time with their Mexican families.
Your history books got it all wrong, so I call